Let's start setting up the Bernina 380 soy machine. First, go ahead and plug it in and turn it on. Your foot control has a cord wrapped around the base, which is really nice, so when you go and store it, all you have to do is come in. You can put it into any of the little grooves along the side. So just undo as much as you need to reach the floor and be comfortable for where you're going to sew. It plugs in right here along the edge of the machine. The card that has all your stitches is going to fit up here on the handle. That just has a little place it can sit right on in. You have your presser foot lifter. This goes in at a slight 7 o'clock, 6:30, depending on how you read it. 6:30, 7 o'clock, and then that will lift and lower our presser foot. Make sure it gets all the way in there. Oh, brand new machine. Just make sure, there it is. And then that will lift and lower your presser foot for later. Love this. You also have a slide-on table. This can go on, and it just lines up with this little peg. Give it a little tap, and it sits on the machine. Now, if you are putting the sewing machine in a cabinet, you will not be able to use this, but always keep this handy and take it to class with you no matter where you go. You'll love having that extra work surface. There's also a little guide that you can add on. Just push, and it snaps on. That can be moved, and you can have a perfect runway next to any presser foot, or measure out the distance to say 3 or 5 inches, and that will guide your fabric perfectly evenly. So I'm going to actually take that off just for right now and keep that off the side. Let's go ahead and thread the machine. Let's talk about the way spools are wound with thread. There is 2 different ways we can put the thread on this machine. There is a horizontal spool pin and a vertical spool pin. Keep in mind that threads that have the little X's, the crisscross to them, or cross-wound thread, those are going to be best suited going on the horizontal spool pin. And then you need to reach in and find a cap. A cap is going to help hold that on. You want to match that up to about the size of the spool. There's different sizes of caps that come with the Bernina. And then we'll go ahead and get that set up for winding a bobbin. But a note about stack thread that goes side to side right on up the spool. That spool is going to sit and work best off the vertical spool pin. We'll also use this if we're doing double needle or triple needle work, and it can be stored out of the way. Speaking of storing things, this is not a place to store full bobbins or a second spool. Do you notice what's going to happen here? This little thread's going to dangle, and it will get pulled into the hand wheel. So if it is not in use, don't put it on there. Just leave it empty, store these somewhere else. Your sewing machine technician will give you a little chuckle when he finds your thread in there. Okay, so pulling off the end here, we're going to go underneath our first guide for the sewing machine and for winding a bobbin. Come around the pre-tensioner. Now you want to kind of hold this tight and then come around it clockwise. There is an arrow to guide you to come all the way around and back across itself. When it goes in there tightly, you'll hear a little snap, and then that's going to make sure that your bobbin winds very, very smoothly. Now, bobbins, you will need to only use Bernina bobbins. They are not a mix and match. And they are really perfectly precision made for these machines, and you really know that you have the right one. So you can do this a couple different ways. You can put the thread from the inside to out, up through one of these holes, and put it on, holding tight, and go ahead and start. Or, because the core has this nice little rough spot now, you can wrap this around the direction of the arrow that's showing on top, 4 or 5 times. There's a little cutter right underneath here. As you cut, you can engage that, and it will start to spin. I'm not pressing my foot control. This is a separate bobbin winder motor in here. So that is easy. It's something extra on this machine I love. So as you come around it and cut it and flip it, that is cut to the right length, and it will start to wind. Go ahead and always fill a full bobbin. You know it always runs out if you don't. That's Murphy's Law. And it will stop when it reaches the end. Look how full this fills and how much thread you actually get on a bobbin. I love it. It stops for you. Then if you go ahead and lift this off, come around that cutter once again, you have everything right where you need to be. We're going to reach down and pull our bobbin out. There's usually a white bobbin in with the machine when it comes from the factory. Now, here's the key for putting your bobbin in correctly here. There is a right and wrong way. So as you look at your bobbin, what you want is your thread coming off the right side. Then when you drop it in there, those holes should spin clockwise. Next, find the little groove on the side of the bobbin case right here that you can bring that on over, and it will drop right on in. Next, hold the bobbin at the top so it doesn't spin and guide the thread along the bobbin case so it pulls between the tension area and right down into the little C area of the bobbin case tension area. So, doesn't matter which side of this little finger the thread lays on when we go and put it in, but we do want to hold this latch open. That will help lock it in so it doesn't fall out. And notice I'm holding it with my left hand. So all you right-handers become left-handed with this bobbin case, and it will be much easier to put into the machine. I'm going to go ahead and take the little table off so we can see what's going on. Really just put it in, finger goes straight up, and when it pushes all the way in, you're good to go. There is a lever or cutter right here on the side of the machine. Cut the thread. That is the perfect length. You don't have to actually bring that up after we thread the machine. We can just go ahead and start to sew. All right, let's go ahead and finish threading the machine. We'll go ahead and undo the pre-tensioner. That is only for winding a bobbin. We don't use that at all for threading, but we do use that first guide that we went through prior to the winding of the bobbin. So come straight down. Sometimes I do hold on to this thread as I start to stitch or thread the machine. Then that way I make sure it gets into all the grooves properly. We're coming down, we're coming up, and then there's two guides. One at the base of the housing right here, you're just going behind, then one more at the very top of the needle. Now we'll do a video that shows you the needle threader so you get a nice close-up view of that, but that makes it really easy. After threading the needle, take the thread, there's a groove on the right side of the foot, drop it down between, and I usually just use the cutter that's on the side of the machine, cut the thread, and then I'm ready to stitch. Should we see if we did it right? I'm going to put the table back on because it makes it so much easier when sewing. When you're testing fabric out and your settings is to always sew on 2 layers of fabric. So as you put that in, lower down your presser foot, and I'll show you how to use the presser foot lifter too, but go ahead and stitch. Now there is kind of that very first time you sew on this machine, there's kind of a little to it. That's the machine's first stitch. It always does it when you turn it on, but it doesn't do it anymore after you start sewing. Isn't that great? Beautiful stitch. And we'll sew right to the end. Needle stops up. You can lift up the presser foot, take the fabric out with one hand, go across the corner where the thread cutter is, pull straight down, and it will usually hold those threads up and out of the way. Now we have a perfect stitch. We'll get into all the details with this machine.